I find it interesting that all of these girls who are in all of these online beefs all got either a project coming out or threatening to put a project out. It's wild. It's like they're taking all of this weirdo gossip and, they're doing it for clout. There is no Diddy tolerance. This is a no Diddy zone. So anybody that says anything that's pro Diddy, yeah. Alright. Yeah, we don't get no fucks about the diddler. Landmark worldwide indeed. Now, what did Claressa do? She decided to become a part of a farce that is destroying what black families...
Y'all, this wasn't a warning. This wasn't a hint. This was a full-scale detonation, live, unfiltered, and aimed straight at the heart of a story people were told not to question. Because the moment Jaguar Wright hit that live button, the tone shifted. This wasn't gossip chasing clicks. This was accusation wrapped in fury, and it landed like a punch you didn't see coming. Jaguar didn't ease into it. She didn't soften a single word. She looked straight into the camera and said what others wouldn't dare to whisper, that what you're watching isn't love, isn't loyalty, and isn't organic success. It's design. It's strategy. It's a narrative built piece by piece, fight by fight, image by image. And according to Jaguar, Claressa Shields isn't just a boxer in this story, she's a product. A carefully positioned figure, shielded by branding, protected by hand-picked moments, and sold to the public as something untouchable. And then she went further. Much further. She questioned the myth. The GOAT label. The fairy tale rise. She asked how greatness is declared so loudly when certain doors are never opened, certain rematches never answered, and certain risks are always avoided. She framed it as a performance, one where the audience claps without ever seeing what happens behind the curtain. But the room really froze when Jaguar turned her fire on Papoose. Because suddenly this wasn't about boxing anymore. This was about leverage, about access, about money and image and control. Jaguar painted a picture of a relationship that doesn't breathe, it calculates. Two people using each other to survive a spotlight that's burning hotter by the day. And in the middle of all of it, a family fracture everyone keeps stepping over. A woman left standing alone while the industry stays silent. Jaguar called that silence out too loudly, painfully, because to her, this wasn't entertainment. It was exploitation dressed up as romance. She said it flat out, this was never love. This was a transaction. And once the deal expires, the truth won't stay buried.
That she ran from, and is still running from. White girl, you plant. You ain't nothing but a plant. And I'm gonna prove it. And that's why you with Pep. Because he's a plant. I'm about to bust you open. See, I figure I'm gonna give you something relevant to go back and forth about, so you can mind your business and stay out of this family that's being ripped.
The moment Jaguar Wright went live, it was clear this wasn't going to be another chaotic rant lost in the algorithm. There was a precision to it, a focus, the kind of intensity that doesn't come from chasing attention, but from someone who believes they're finally saying what's been deliberately buried. Jaguar didn't start with pleasantries. She didn't warm the audience up. She walked straight into the fire and named what most people refuse to question: the image, the narrative, the machine behind it. According to Jaguar, what the public sees when they look at Claressa Shields is not an organic rise fueled purely by skill, grit, and dominance. What they're seeing, she claims, is the end product of a carefully managed system, one that knows exactly how to manufacture greatness without exposing its cracks. She didn't deny Claressa's talent. That wasn't the angle. Instead, Jaguar questioned the path, the protection, the selective challenges, the way certain doors swing wide open while others stay permanently shut. She framed it as something deeper than boxing, a branding operation masquerading as legacy. Jaguar's tone hardened when she began talking about the GOAT label. She asked how that title gets stamped so confidently when the resume behind it remains tightly curated. How do you crown someone the greatest when the most dangerous tests never happen? When the rematches that could complicate the story are avoided? When the risks are minimized and the wins are maximized for optics? To Jaguar, that wasn't strategy. That was fraud, marketing fraud dressed up as dominance. She argued that Claressa's career trajectory didn't resemble the chaotic, punishing reality most elite fighters endure. Instead, it looked clean, controlled, designed to maintain an image rather than test it. And the more Jaguar spoke, the more it sounded like she wasn't just critiquing a boxer, she was accusing an entire system of engineering a star. And then she went there. She claimed Claressa didn't just stumble into this position. She suggested Claressa played along, that she understood the rules of the game and benefited from them, that the avoidance of certain rematches wasn't accidental, but intentional, because losing control of the narrative would mean losing everything the machine built. That's when Jaguar made her most damaging accusation yet.
You got a fight coming up. Handpicked. Funny, it's not the fight you should be fighting, is it? There's a rematch you've been running from for years. You want to call yourself the greatest woman of all time, but yet you're afraid to fight somebody that beat you before?
After that moment, the conversation shifted. This was no longer just about Claressa Shields. It was about why certain fighters are protected and who benefits from that protection. Jaguar argued that boxing had slowly taken a back seat in Claressa's career. In its place, branding, PR, narrative control. She suggested that Claressa was being transitioned away from the sport itself and repositioned as a broader product, someone whose value extended beyond the ring and into social media influence, partnerships, and controlled controversy. And controversy is where Papoose enters the picture. Jaguar didn't hesitate when she turned her focus toward him. She didn't frame him as a supportive partner or a loyal defender. She described him as an opportunist, someone who recognized Claressa's visibility, her earning power, and her usefulness in reshaping his own relevance. According to Jaguar, Papoose didn't attach himself to Claressa out of love. He attached himself out of necessity. She claimed his own identity had grown stagnant, that aligning with Claressa gave him renewed access, renewed attention, and renewed leverage. And in return, Claressa gained something just as valuable, a man willing to publicly defend her image at all costs. Jaguar painted their relationship as transactional, mutually beneficial, cold, calculated. Two people using each other to survive a spotlight neither could fully control alone. But the damage didn't stop there. Jaguar accused both of them of exploiting a fracture that already existed, one that involved a family, a child, and a woman the industry quietly stopped protecting. She alleged that Claressa entered the picture fully aware of the tension between Papoose and Remy Ma, that she didn't accidentally step into a broken situation, she leveraged it. And Papoose, she claimed, allowed it because it served him. That's where Jaguar's anger became moral. She spoke about black families being torn apart and repackaged as entertainment, about social media turning private breakdowns into content cycles, and about how silence from the industry, especially from other women, only makes the damage worse. Jaguar defended Remy Ma without hesitation. She questioned why so many female artists, so many voices that claim empowerment, chose to say nothing. Why the burden of dignity fell on the person being displaced instead of the people doing the displacing. To Jaguar, that silence wasn't accidental. It was strategic. And as the live continued, her language sharpened again, this time toward control. She claimed Claressa wasn't as free as she appeared. That behind the scenes, someone else was steering the ship. Someone else was managing access, money, image, and direction.
Just the two of us? And whoever he's reporting to, because I'm telling you now, after this relationship farce business with you, trying to transfer the Black Love brand to you and him, he's your handler, girl. Wake up!
And with that, Jaguar closed the door on any remaining illusions. She mocked the performance, the public appearances, the way the two of them mirror each other more than they complement each other. She described it as a parody, two people so intertwined in image and control that they've become indistinguishable. Her final message in this chapter was simple, brutal, and impossible to ignore. This isn't love. It's a deal. And when the deal expires, the truth won't ask for permission to come out. After the accusations settled into the air, the conversation didn't cool down, it sharpened. Because once Jaguar Wright framed the relationship as a transaction, the next question became unavoidable. Who profits and who pays the price? Jaguar shifted the focus away from public optics and straight into what she described as the real engine behind everything: control. Not emotional control, not romantic control, operational control. The kind that decides where someone shows up, what they say, how they're seen, and more importantly, where the money flows. She suggested that Claressa Shields' visibility didn't just come with endorsements and applause, it came with dependency. According to Jaguar, the louder the branding grew, the smaller Claressa's personal autonomy became. Decisions weren't just being made for her, they were being made around her, in rooms she wasn't fully in. Jaguar didn't describe this as sudden. She described it as gradual, a slow tightening. First, guidance, then advice, then management. And before long, oversight that no longer asked, it instructed. That's when Jaguar brought Papoose back into the frame, not as a partner standing beside Claressa, but as someone standing between her and the truth. She claimed that Papoose positioned himself as a protector, but functioned as a gatekeeper. The one who translated the world to Claressa. The one who filtered criticism. The one who framed every warning as jealousy, every red flag as hate, and every concern as an attack. According to Jaguar, this is how influence works best, not through force, but through comfort, through reassurance, through convincing someone that you're the only person they can trust while quietly isolating them from everyone else. And the more Jaguar talked, the clearer her implication became. Claressa wasn't just being elevated, she was being contained. Jaguar argued that money accelerates this process. When income spikes quickly, when opportunities pile up, when the checks grow larger than the experience handling them, power naturally shifts to the person who handles logistics, contracts, appearances, messaging, damage control. And that's where Jaguar said the danger lives. She warned that when a fighter takes repeated head trauma while someone else manages the finances, the imbalance becomes more than professional, it becomes predatory. Not because of one evil act, but because of a system that quietly benefits from silence, fatigue, and trust. That's when Jaguar's tone darkened even further. She claimed that Claressa's physical toll wasn't being protected, it was being exploited. That every punch absorbed didn't just slow reaction time, it increased dependency. And dependency, she argued, is the most profitable condition of all.
But that's okay, because every time you get punched in the head and you get a little slower, that's great for Papoose. Because now he don't have to explain to you how he's robbing you. He can just do it and notice that you'll just be sitting there, just the two of us, and he be gone with the damn money. You better watch your pocket. Stop playing in that.
Source. Second transcript. After that moment, Jaguar didn't walk it back. She didn't soften the claim. She doubled down. She framed the situation as one where love becomes camouflage, where romance distracts from accounting, where public affection masks private imbalance, and where the person losing clarity is the last to realize what's being taken. Jaguar claimed this dynamic explains why Claressa appears increasingly detached from boxing itself, why her public presence leans more toward image maintenance than competitive hunger, why the focus seems to be shifting away from legacy inside the ring and toward survivability outside of it. To Jaguar, that wasn't evolution. It was extraction. She said the industry has a long history of chewing up fighters, especially when they become more valuable as symbols than as athletes. And once the symbol is secured, the human cost becomes negotiable. Jaguar also returned to the subject of Remy Ma, but this time, not just as a displaced wife. She framed Remy as collateral damage in a much larger play. According to Jaguar, removing Remy from the picture didn't just clear emotional space, it cleared resistance. Remy, she implied, wasn't easily managed. She had her own voice, her own leverage, her own understanding of the game. Claressa, by contrast, entered the situation without the same insulation. And that difference mattered. Jaguar accused the industry of rewarding that difference. She questioned why no one rushed to defend Remy when the narrative turned against her. Why so many voices went silent. Why it became easier to let the story drift than to confront the uncomfortable truth beneath it. According to Jaguar, silence isn't neutrality, it's participation. As part 2 progressed, Jaguar's language became less about individuals and more about patterns. She connected Claressa's situation to a broader cycle, one where rising figures are packaged, positioned, and monetized until their usefulness expires. And when that happens, Jaguar warned, the exit is never graceful. She predicted that once the branding peaks and the attention shifts, the protection will disappear. The same people who curated the image will distance themselves from the consequences. And the person left holding the damage will be the one who trusted the system to begin with. Jaguar didn't claim this would happen overnight. She said it would happen quietly, slowly, with plausible deniability. Until one day, the money's gone, the support is gone, and the truth arrives without warning. Her message wasn't just accusatory, it was cautionary. She urged Claressa to look beyond the surface, to question who benefits from her silence, to examine who gains control as she loses it, and to understand that being defended publicly doesn't mean being protected privately. By the end of this part, the tone had shifted again, from exposure to inevitability. Jaguar wasn't asking whether the situation was unhealthy anymore. She was warning that it was already in motion, that the transaction had terms, and that those terms were designed to favor the person holding the leash. And as the live stream pressed forward, one thing became painfully clear. If part 1 was about what this relationship really is, part 2 was about what it's going to cost. And in the next chapter, Jaguar makes it clear, the bill is coming due. By the time Jaguar Wright reached the final stretch of her live, the tone was no longer explosive, it was surgical. The accusations had already landed. The patterns had already been outlined. What remained was the most uncomfortable part of all, the silence. Because in Jaguar's view, silence is never neutral. She turned her attention away from Claressa and Papoose for a moment and aimed it at the room itself, the industry, the peers, the so-called allies who watched the spectacle unfold and chose not to intervene. Jaguar argued that this kind of quiet isn't accidental. It's strategic. It's the sound of people protecting access, contracts, and proximity to power. According to Jaguar, when a narrative benefits too many people at once, nobody wants to be the first to question it. So they wait. They deflect. They tell themselves it's not their place. And in that waiting, damage multiplies. She called out the pattern bluntly. When relationships implode publicly, the woman who refuses to perform dignity on demand becomes the problem. The man who benefits from ambiguity keeps moving forward. And the person positioned as the new face is allowed to step over wreckage without accountability. Jaguar framed Remy Ma as the clearest example of this imbalance. She didn't portray Remy as perfect. She portrayed her as inconvenient. A woman with history, with credibility, with a voice that couldn't be easily repackaged or silenced. And in Jaguar's telling, that inconvenience made Remy expendable. The industry didn't rally. It recalculated. Jaguar questioned why so many women, especially those who built careers on empowerment rhetoric, suddenly lost their voices. Why sisterhood vanished the moment it required risk. Why standing up for someone on the wrong side of a narrative became too expensive. To Jaguar, that wasn't betrayal. That was fear economics. She then returned to Claressa, not with sympathy, but with warning. Jaguar suggested that Claressa's current visibility is fragile. That influence built on controlled narratives collapses quickly once the narrative breaks. She argued that Claressa's increasing presence online, the carefully framed photos, the staged confidence, all point to someone being pushed forward faster than they can process what's happening behind them. And the danger, Jaguar said, is that once a person becomes more valuable as an image than as a human, their well-being becomes secondary. That's when she sharpened her critique of Papoose one last time. She didn't accuse him of one dramatic act. She accused him of positioning, of always being close enough to benefit, but far enough to deny responsibility, of presenting himself as stable while aligning with instability, of crying publicly while collecting privately. Jaguar suggested that this is how people disappear from accountability, not by running, but by blending into narratives where blame is always shared and therefore never assigned. As the live continued, Jaguar mocked the performance aspect of it all. The coordinated appearances, the mirrored fashion, the public intimacy meant to signal unity while masking imbalance. She framed it as parody, a relationship so tightly curated that authenticity never gets air. She said they'd become reflections instead of partners, copies instead of contrasts. Two people orbiting the same image until neither can tell where one ends and the other begins. And then Jaguar paused. The tone shifted from commentary to consequence. She warned that transactions always come with an expiration date, that deals made under pressure don't age well, and that once the returns diminish, the protections vanish. That's when she delivered what may have been her most damning statement of the entire live, not as a punchline, but as a prognosis.
But the simple fact that more people in hip-hop aren't standing up for Remy, that more female MCs are letting this old weirdo, I barely got a boxing record chick, disrespect one of the greatest female MCs of all time.
After that, Jaguar didn't need to raise her voice. The implication was already clear. She described what happens next in scenarios like this, not as prophecy, but as pattern recognition. The slow distancing, the missed calls, the rebranded explanations, the quiet exits, the sudden realization that the people who once controlled everything are no longer reachable. She argued that when the spotlight moves on, it doesn't take the damage with it. It leaves it behind. Jaguar said this is why the industry prefers confusion over clarity. Because confusion buys time, it delays accountability. It keeps the public arguing about personalities instead of systems. And that's why, she claimed, this story keeps getting reframed as messy, complicated, or drama. Because calling it what it is would force uncomfortable questions about control, exploitation, and who benefits when families fracture publicly. Jaguar closed this chapter by stripping the story down to its core. This isn't about boxing. It isn't about hip-hop. It isn't even about romance. It's about use. Who is being used? Who is doing the using? And who is standing quietly on the sidelines, waiting to see which direction the wind blows? She said love doesn't require handlers. Legacy doesn't need protection from competition. And truth doesn't survive in rooms where everyone is paid to stay quiet. By the end of the live, Jaguar had dismantled the illusion piece by piece, not with receipts, not with files, but with something far more destabilizing: consistency. Her argument never wavered. Her framing never softened. And her conclusion never changed. This relationship wasn't built to last. This narrative wasn't built to hold. And this silence won't survive pressure. Because when deals collapse, the truth doesn't explode, it leaks. Slowly. Publicly. Irreversibly. And once that starts, no amount of branding can put it back. This is the moment where the noise fades and the damage becomes impossible to ignore. Because stories like this don't collapse in public, they rot quietly until someone finally pulls the curtain back. What you're watching isn't chaos. It's consequence. It's what happens when image matters more than integrity and silence is treated like loyalty. The betrayal here isn't just personal. It's structural. It's built into the way power moves, the way narratives are protected, and the way people are discarded once their usefulness expires. Someone trusted the wrong people. Someone believed the performance. And someone else walked away cleaner, richer, and untouched. This is how it always ends. Not with closure. Not with apologies. But with distance. With memory holes. With everyone suddenly claiming they didn't know, didn't see it, didn't play a role. That's the most violent part of all, the rewriting. The pretending. The erasure. What makes this tragic isn't fame or money. It's time. Time given to people who were never honest. Time spent defending a story that was already cracking underneath. Time lost protecting something that was never real to begin with. And now the audience gets a front row seat to the aftermath. To the silence. To the unanswered questions. To the slow realization that love was never the foundation leverage was. So don't look away. Don't let this get buried under the next headline or the next distraction. Because stories like this don't stop when the live ends. They stop when people refuse to accept the version they're being sold. Say what everyone else is afraid to say. Question what you were told to celebrate. And decide for yourself who is using who. Drop your thoughts. Choose your side. Because once the truth starts leaking, it doesn't go back in the bottle.